Good evening and welcome to Conversations with a Commissioner. This is our inaugural Conversations event in 2022. And tonight, our special guest and host is District 2 Commissioner Nancy Sharpe. We're here tonight to talk to you a little bit about what's coming up for the county in 2022 and to give you some updates on the latest movement in our efforts toward creating a single county health department, which we will be doing throughout the course of this year. So we've been working on that for several months, and we do have a few updates. We're still relatively early in the process, but it's coming along, and we're learning a lot, and we're trying to set things up in such a way that it's going to be seamless transition for all the residents out there that do use public health services. So we're going to talk about that. Before I introduce Commissioner Sharpe, let me tell you a little bit about how this is going to work. If you are on the phone and want to ask a question of the commissioner, you want to dial *3, and that'll put you through to an operator, and they will put you in line to ask a question. We're going to do a quick slide presentation before that. And then if you're online, you can type questions into the comments box, and we will get to them also as they come in. So with that, I will introduce Commissioner Sharpe.
Hi, hello everyone, and thank you, Luke. It's nice to be with you all, and I hope that you are safe and didn't have to get out on the roads too much today, and certainly are staying warm. Tonight's going to be pretty cold, and it's kind of a new thing for us this year. So, and even this winter, I should say, not just this year, because we're barely into this year. But anyway, welcome everyone. Before I get into the health department, I'm just going to give you a few updates on the kinds of things that we are doing and have worked on. And last year 2021 was an extremely busy year. And as I'm sure we all seem to have these days. So I'm going to go through a few things. And so Luke, if you want to put the first slide up, that would be great. And we are going to have opportunities for questions. And so if you have a question, write it down. And I'm going to go through these things, but please save your questions, and I'd be happy to answer anything as we get to the end of the presentation. So next slide, please, Luke. Okay, one more.
Right, there you go.
Okay, great. Thank you. So first is last year during election time, just have to thank everyone because the voters overwhelmingly supported our continuation of our open space sales tax, and not only a continuation, but to make it permanent. And it's 1/4 cent. And what I think is so good about that is that we all love the outdoors, and this supports our parks and our trails across the county. And as part of that collection of that sales tax, 50% of it is shared back with the cities, and an additional amount is supported through cities and special districts make requests for special projects. And we have some very large projects that come in, grant requests that we approve, as well as smaller planning grants. So it's a really positive and really important sales tax, and it's the only one that Arapahoe County has. So I want to really thank you for that, and thank the commissioners all made visits to the cities and had an opportunity to ask questions of them, and them to ask questions of us. So thanks again. The second thing on here is the programs that we offer, and we approve those at budget time. And some of those are aid to agencies, which is an opportunity. We set aside a little bit of money to support our mental health facilities, and some of where we might have gaps, where maybe that organization doesn't have quite enough opportunity to put all the funding that we would like for to take care of our citizens and our residents in our county. So that's one of them. The youth awards, which we recognize young people who they're nominated by their counselors through schools or family members who've really risen above a lot of hardship. And it's wonderful. It's a terrific event to be able to recognize these very important and really wonderful young people and what they've accomplished. National Adoption Day is, of course, just such a wonderful time for so many families and so many children. CSU Extension, where we have that's very our 4-H and all of the things that we have out at our fair, heavily supported by CSU Extension, as well as a number of horticulture programs and things like that. There are all kinds of great opportunities through our CSU Extension and Registered Apprentice program, where we have apprenticeships available for young people through our Workforce Development Center. And then workforce development. And I think if we've known anything in the last 2 years, that a workforce development center, Arapahoe Douglas Works, has been really critical, and for individuals who lost their jobs in the early times of the pandemic, and maybe they haven't come back, or they're trying to learn new skills or move into different opportunities that they were not, they didn't have at the time of when the pandemic hit. So, and it's always available anytime for seniors, for young people, as well as all of those, any job seekers. So I just encourage you, if you're looking for a position, to contact AD Works, and you can find, of course, find all of this information on our county website. 18th Judicial, I'll just touch on that. That's going to be one thing that you're going to be hearing more and more about. The judicial district 18th that we are currently in includes Arapahoe County, Douglas, Lincoln, and Elbert counties, and it's the largest judicial district in the state. And there was a decision about a year and a half ago to actually split up that jurisdiction. And so Arapahoe County will be its own judicial district. It will remain the 18th, but Douglas, Lincoln, and Elbert will become the 23rd judicial district. And it's the first time, and I think it's about 50, 60 years where we've actually had a new judicial district. So we're learning as we go, and trying to get support and getting support from the state to help guide us through what that process looks like. And there's still a lot of questions, so stay tuned for how that's going to work. It will be effective in 2025, and a new DA will be elected in the 18th Judicial in 2020 for our newly 18th Judicial District in 2024 and effective 2025. So ARPA funding, and that stands for American Rescue Plan funding. As you probably are aware, cities and counties all across the country and the states all across the country receive federal funding. And we are working through, and have been working through since we were notified that we would be receiving that money last year, as to how best and how strategically to spend that money. It was an awful lot of money, and we want to be very, very careful. It's one-time funding, so we're not starting programs where they're going to have an ongoing. We're a Tabor limited county, and so we want to be very, very strategic on how this money is spent, and it can be spent for a variety of different things, and some of them are listed here: homelessness, some of the mental health programs, addiction programs, that kind of thing, as well as business support. Really important for business support infrastructure. Some things that may not be covered in the infrastructure bill that was just passed by Congress. We're still waiting to get, really more information there about what may or may not be covered, like water projects and things like that. Maybe we have an old aging water system somewhere in the county that needs to be upgraded, and that provides a great level of safety. And that, I think that's a great way to possibly spend this money, or infrastructure funding, sorry, as we go forward. So last thing I'll touch on this slide is the opioid settlement. As you will recall from national news, that there was a settlement, a national settlement for some of the drug companies and that dispensed opioids, and the state received a substantial amount of money, and work went into a lot of last year on how that money would be distributed going forward. It's going to come over about 20 years, so there's not a tremendous amount of money every year, but it's going to go toward programs like addiction and that kind of thing to help people who have been addicted to opioids. So there'll be a board, and those decisions will be made by a group of people and stakeholders to determine how best to spend those funds. And I think in all of this, we have paid really a lot of attention on how to be fiscally responsible in everything that we spend, and looking at the most important issues today and the most important issues going forward, and how to use any of the funding that we receive, that like the ARPA funding, American Rescue, that are one-time funds, how to spend those best and not start something that we won't be able to sustain in 2 years. So next slide. So I've covered a little bit about our strategic plan. And, one of the things that we did formalize our board was this strategic plan. And now we're moving forward with implementing, and that's part of some of that ARPA funding and how we best use that to achieve our strategic plan. And we'll focus on safety, health and welfare, increased engagement with our community partners, and how best to address some of the aging infrastructure. I did talk about that with respect to water and sewer, but we also have some buildings across the county that most of our buildings are pretty old. And so we need to make sure we are keeping up with all of those. The master plans for transportation and open spaces, we're beginning to execute. We've done the master plan, so we are beginning to execute on the next phases of those plans. And on all of these things, I think it's really important to understand that we are really involving our cities in all of our partnerships to make sure we learned a lot back during the COVID. We've always worked well with our cities, but we really strengthened our partnership with our cities and strengthened that trust in each other. And going forward, we plan to continue on and have really important dialogues with our cities on what's important to their residents in their cities, as well as unincorporated citizens in the county. So those are a couple of things on the master plan and open space. As we all are probably aware, this is an election year. County commissioners will be 2 county commissioners, my seat and Commissioner Jackson, will be up. We are both term limited, so those seats are up, as well as all of our countywide electeds. And what makes it a little bit more, it's not complicated for this year because the election will take place. But as we get into later this year, we will be talking about redistricting, and that redistricting will take place for commissioner districts. The state, you may be aware that some of the state, we've got a new congressional district, but we also have some of the new House and Senate at the state level district boundaries. So you'll see when you come to vote this year, you may be in a different House district or a different Senate district than you've been in before. And you'll be electing maybe the same people, maybe some new people. So I just encourage you as we get into this year and you start seeing candidates, to start focusing on the candidates that you will be voting for, and whatever district you will be in going forward. So the county fair we will have are excited to have again this year. We had record attendance last year, so when it's last week of July. So if you start seeing that, make your plans, get your plans. We could hardly accommodate all the people. I think everybody really wanted to get out and be among friends and family and have fun last year, and we certainly the fair was certainly a big part of that last year, and we're looking forward to that again this year. And I talked about redistricting a little bit. State legislature every year now that the state legislature is back in session, our county elected officials, and our board and other elected officials are working with our legislature, Colorado counties specifically, on legislation and how those particular, there are, I think, 600, more than 600 bills that come through the legislature, and most of those do not impact the county government. So we really focus on county government issues and try to, if we think that the bill could be better, we try to work with the legislators to make it better, to improve it. And certainly what's important, very important, is to our county, is not to have unfunded mandates. It's we're on a very, very tight budget, and when laws are passed in the legislature that pass down millions of dollars worth of expense, that's very difficult. And then we have to, on us, and then we have to decide what will not get done in order to accommodate the requirements of the new law. And sometimes that is not a good, that's not what our residents actually want us to do. We are, many of the commissioners involved in business groups. So we do follow the business agendas that are coming at the legislature as well through both avenues. So next slide. So, I think one of the things now is that I think a lot of people have certainly focused on either have had concerns or have been happy with Tri-County Health and the decisions that they've made during the COVID, during the last 2 years. But I have to say that the health department, while that has been a primary focus, the health department does a lot of things that are in addition to the things that mask mandates and vaccines and things like that with respect to COVID. As most of you all know, the Tri-County Health is not going to be a Tri-County Health at the end of this year going into 2023. So our county has been very focused starting last year on what our single county health department looks like. What's best for our county, what best meets the needs for our residents across the county. And we've got a very diverse county. We've got, suburban areas. We've got more, I wouldn't say urban, but a little bit more urban areas, and we've got rural areas, and we've got a diversity of population, ethnicities, ages, that kind of thing. So we're trying to pay attention to what's important across our county and how to meet all of those needs. And there are a couple of things, and I'll get to that in just a minute with our goals, but we have hired a consulting company called Ottawa, and they have expertise in this area, and they're trying to bring forward and doing a great job of bringing forward to us the things that we need to think about as a Board of County Commissioners as we go forward and make this transition. So next slide, please. So I'm going to just key in on the goals here, and I think the first and most important is to provide high quality public health services, and we must be consistent with the state. There are some things that are mandated by the state that health departments have to do, and so we obviously will provide those. we're going to deliver services in a cost-effective manner. And I think one of the things on this slide that's really important to me is innovative. And let's use innovation as ways to deliver these services and deliver them at a very reasonable cost, yet provide that high quality. And then throughout the rest of this year, to try and minimize any impacts to our customers, staff, financial impacts to the county. That's always really important as we go through this process. So I'm going to, in a minute, I'm going to go through kind of what our timeline, but we've looked at what the best practices are from around the country. And we're going to take from those what we think are best for our county and meet our needs, because clearly things that happen in a bigger city back east or in the west may not meet our needs exactly. So and we have public health assessments that are done by the hospitals, that are done by the county, that really help us to frame and focus what those needs are and what our highest priority needs are. So we're not going in this with not knowing what those are, because there's a lot of data already available to us that we're going to be using. We're evaluating current and potential funding sources. As you can imagine, with a 3-county health board or health entity, the funding is going to be different with 1 county versus 3. So we're in the process of determining how to maximize the dollars that we get from the federal government, from the state government, and how much we will ourselves in Arapahoe County have to put into the funding. We've set aside dollar amounts in our budget to help us not only make this transition, but also knowing that there's a pretty significant possibility that it's going to cost us more than what we've paid in the past. And so we've set aside funding to be able to do that, so that we pretty much don't miss a beat here. The board is also going to consider governance. We have had 3 from when it was Tri-County Health with Douglas, Arapahoe, and Adams, 3 board members from each entity, each county. And we are going through the process of how many board members we would like to have, what that membership should look like. And we are required to have no fewer than 5. So we know we'll have at least 5, possibly more than that. We're looking at whether an elected official should be on that, how many health officials, community, people from the community, and what they sort of look like in terms of representation, the business community, different. I think that it's kind of across the board. We don't have exactly what that board makeup will look like, but we are spending a lot of time to make sure that it is reflective in many ways of our community, of the many diversities across our community. And I think the other thing is to provide, we will provide during this whole process, we'll be looking at how to provide and contact all residents, business people, stakeholders across our county, so that people have an input as to what this board is going to look like, what the health department's going to look like. And so kind of stay tuned for that. I think the next slide is a timeline. And we're not only not only trying to educate ourselves, but we will be spending quite a bit of time educating the public as well as to what all of the services that a health department provides and stakeholders and why we are making the choices that we are making. Once we hear, we'll have to make decisions, and so we will inform the public as to why we made the decisions that we did, and encouraging all of our stakeholders, and as I said, residents included, to provide input as to what's most important. And clear details about services and what the health department must provide. And there will be a lot of flexibility, I think, in that, and we will have to determine, this year, or starting in 2023, exactly what it is that we are going to start out with, what are the highest priorities, and then we may have to bring on additional services as we kind of get our feet underneath us. You'll see the first, what we're doing: nursing, nutrition, community health, environmental health, emergency preparedness, planning, and then, of course, administration and finance. So we're looking, are there things that could be outsourced? Are there things that we could bring into the county and do within our county, provide some of those services? And some of those might be human resources, IT, some of those kinds of things, and versus having those as part of the health department. So it's very new. We are we're learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about how a health department should be structured or could be structured, and how different, we have a variety of them, different models across our state and certainly across the country. So that's, we will, and I know I emphasize it a lot, but we will be fiscally responsible as we go through this process, but also want to make sure that our residents who have counted on Tri-County get the services that they need, and count on there. So particularly our most vulnerable populations. So next slide. So our next, we're currently scheduling in-person meetings, and some of them, I'm thinking, some of them, we've learned a lot in COVID that we can reach a lot of people virtually, and we like to do that. We still have, our town halls, and those are available where we can answer questions and we can get feedback, and have a lot of people, on a particularly, like, excuse me, a cold night like tonight, cold and snowy, you can join us from the comforts of your home, and be able to answer questions or hear feedback, get caught up on what it is that we're doing, get information, and that's what we'll continue to do. This is one format for doing that, is our conversations with listeners. We continue to have, as I mentioned, town halls that we had all of last year, and we'll continue to focus on things that are relevant and important to, as we get into closer to election time. There are always a lot of questions about where to vote and how people get the information that they need in order to vote, and so we'll be looking at that. Business focused feedback is always incredibly important. We rely on our businesses to, they're an extremely important part of our Arapahoe County community, and we look forward to hearing from them as well, and listening sessions where, we will have that opportunity to hear from all the audiences that we need to, and make sure that we're hearing from everybody appropriately. I wanted to say that the website, if you would like to continue to get information, is Arapahoe Gov. That's arapahogov.com/health. And so if you need additional information or would just like to stay on top of what's going on, we try to answer as many. I know it's been tough with some of the mask mandates and things like that to answer everybody's emails. We try to do our best, but certainly we will try to keep everybody up to date with our progress on moving forward with our new health department, And right now, planning on that to be effective January of 2023. And I will just touch base on one quick thing that um, the health board, Tri-County Health Board, did meet on Monday afternoon and did decide to rescind the mask mandates, both for schools and indoor spaces, and that's rescinded effective this Saturday, the 5th. So I think there's been a little confusion on whether it was Friday or Saturday. It is Saturday. And I know we've continued to get a few emails from individuals saying, don't eliminate the mask mandate. Tri County Health has made their decision. I think it is still the school superintendents, with regards to schools, may still make a different decision, as I understand. So I think you'll have to wait and check in with your school district to see what position they take. I know we at the meeting on Monday heard from two superintendents who I think gave very thoughtful answers to some of the questions about how students who have health issues are going to be protected in the future, and that those kinds of things are things that they deal with all the time, even prior to COVID, and they will continue to take those measures. And for students who want to continue or need to continue to wear a mask, either way, they will be respected. And I hope that that will always be the case. And even whether we go to the grocery store or we go to a store, that will continue to respect people's right to wear a mask should they want to or need to. And businesses may make their own decisions regarding that as well. So I think we've been through a lot. It's been very stressful, to say the least. And I think respect for each other, and now going forward, for those who want to wear masks or who choose not to, is really important. So thank you all very much. And I know I'm not saying anything that you all don't appreciate, that we respect each other's decisions. And that's a lot of what we've been, trying to do and trying to figure out over the last 2 years. So thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it back to Luke. And if you have I think you had a couple of poll questions, Luke, and then we'll take some other questions as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner. Just to remind everyone, if you are joining us on the phone and you want to ask a question of the Commissioner, you can dial *3 and that'll put you through to an operator. If you're joining us online, you can type the question into the comments box. We have some queued up already, and I'll get to those in just a second. Before I do that, I want to ask the first of two polling questions. This is for those of you who are on the phone. We want to ask a general question about living in Arapahoe County. And the question is, how likely are you to recommend living in Arapahoe County to someone else? If you are very likely, press 1. If you're somewhat likely, press 2. If you're neutral, press 3. If you're somewhat unlikely, press 4. And if you're very unlikely, press 5. So once again, how likely are you to recommend living in Arapahoe County to someone else? 1 is very likely, 2 is somewhat likely, 3 is neutral, 4 is somewhat unlikely, and 5 is very unlikely. And I'll give you those results in a little bit and ask you a second question. I'm going to start right now with some online questions. One is, could you please repeat the name of the consultant that is advising on the creation of the health department? That's a company called the Otowi Group, OTOWI, and it's a consultant that specializes in this kind of thing. Commissioner, can you tell us a little bit about Otowi and how we chose them?
Yeah, we did a application process and tried to find an organization that, again, as Luke said, had expertise in this area, and they do, and they don't come with. It was very important for them not to come to our county with preconceived notions or telling us what to do. They've presented options for us. We meet once a week with them. Our board has been meeting once a week with them. And then we have a subgroup of our department directors, human services, our attorney, our finance department, and others who are meeting with them once a week as well to help kind of go through and see if there are opportunities for example, for the county to maybe do some things internally that that maybe we don't need to have our standalone health department do, or maybe that's not, maybe it should all be done in a similar way to Tri-County Health, but as a single county health department. So I think we really looked for an organization that could give us the options, not make decisions for us, but give us the options and answer all the questions that we've had. And I think they've done a great job so far, and I don't see that changing.
Excellent. I'm going to go to the phones now. We have a caller named Sonia who has a question about the decision making of the health department. Sonia, you are live.
Oh, thank you. So I am very concerned that the new health department and the planning for it incorporate three specific principles. One is that the health department should be making evidence-based decision-making and fully transparent in that decision-making so that the basis of their decision-making is posted for the public, including state directives and the scientific basis of their decisions, and also that they provide opportunity for public participation during meetings. I think this is really important. We've had unprecedented policy measures over the past 2 years, which for the past year have no longer been supported by science in terms of effectiveness. And I think that evidence-based policies are central. So I just wanted to put that in there and also ask what the public's opportunity will be during the time of formulating ideas for setting up a committee to provide input.
Well, I will say, Sonia, I really appreciate your comments. And actually, this week, our board also talked about, as we go through this process, the need for transparency, the need for data and information as we make our decisions about what this health department will look like ultimately. And then ultimately, the health department itself will determine its bylaws, but we can set the stage, which I believe all of our commissioners want to do, to absolutely address the things you've talked about, that evidence-based information or data, certainly transparency. I think that's incredibly important in any organization. It's important to our county and at any level of government and with any organization. And I think once we get out of this, the pandemic, and can have regularly scheduled open meetings, not just on, virtual meetings. I think that's also very important to hear from the public and see people face to face. I know I really appreciate that. And whether it's something, whether it's a criticism of the county or me, and I believe our board feels the same way, we need to hear those things. And so I appreciate that. The opportunity, maybe Luke can talk about, I don't know what's been absolutely scheduled, but I would say get into that arapahoegov.com/health, and we will make sure that there are things posted in there or on our website in a prominent place, and looking for opportunities. I'm hoping that as we go forward, not just town halls, but that we'll actually have some information, kind of like we're doing tonight, where we can maybe ask some poll questions and see what people are really thinking are the most important. prior to the last 2 years, I don't know that many people had all that much knowledge about what our health department does. So certainly the people who use the health department did. Restaurant inspections is something that we've been very focused on, and I think most of the general public is focused on because it's a safety issue, some of the environmental issues. But many of the other things that they do a great job of are not very well known. And so I think that's a comprehensive look at all the things that they do. And I'm learning myself too. So we'll try to reach out every time we can. And Luke, if you have more information on when we're going to have that, some listening sessions and that kind of thing, please chime in.
Yeah, definitely. We in addition to this round of conversations with commissioners, which focuses on each commissioner's district, we're going to do some all county events as well that will be a similar format, but with all 5 commissioners and probably some public health officials that throughout the year, as we haven't scheduled them specifically yet, but as we hit certain benchmarks, we're going to be doing that, I would say, at least twice, maybe 3 times before the end of the year. So people really will have a chance to weigh in. There probably will be some other listening sessions that may be a little more focused about specific public health topics. If we want to hear more about how something like restaurant inspections, for example, or other public health issues might be benefited by listening to the affected communities. So we have a very robust communications plan for all this. So I would definitely stay tuned to that. As the commissioner said, you can get specific health department stuff by going to arapahoegov.com/health. You can also go to the commissioners page on arapahoegov.com, and they have a link where you can sign up for the commissioner's newsletter, which we publish weekly. So there's updates there about all kinds of county business, including public health and everything else. And so those 2 things together will certainly give you a lot of information. As we sort of enter the phase where maybe we can put some of the pandemic restrictions behind us, we want to get the commissioners back out into their respective districts and to meet you all in face to face if you want to show up. Not tonight, obviously. It's actually a good thing that we're doing this virtually because of the weather. But as we get into spring and summer, we certainly are going to try to keep a lot more meetings on the agenda that are in person, and probably provide some kind of a virtual hybrid so that people who can't make it in person can still watch it online. We also record these, and the recordings are available within about 24 hours after the event itself. So with all that in mind, we love to hear that you're interested and engaged. And so back to the questions for tonight. Just a reminder, if you're on the phone and you want to ask a question, you can dial *3, and you can also type a question into the comments box. Let me give you the results of the first polling question, which was, how likely are you to recommend living in Arapahoe County to someone else? 33% of you said you're very likely. 37% said somewhat likely. 17% are neutral, 7% are somewhat unlikely, and 6% are very unlikely. We would always love to hear why. If things could be improved in any way, you can feel free to email us at any time at communicationsservices@arapahoegov.com. And with that, let me go to another phone question. This is actually on RTD, and this is Paulo. Paulo, go ahead. You are live.
Okay. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Headset. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Well, yeah. I'm sorry. My name is Paul. I'm sure if you guys had the chance to look at the email, or I'm sorry, the message there. But I'm very dedicated and committed to RTD and public transit, mostly because of the way it affects the low income, and rent's really hard to make, and just a plethora of things, public safety, health. I mean, a lot of things. I've gone through a lot with RTD myself, but what I've mentioned in the comments is that, I mean, unfortunately, I really do think that as an organization, RTD has been neglecting and they've just been terrible, I think. And, you know, there's evidence of, like, you know, with Polis and the way that he's, you know, talked about or mentioned RTD and not giving them funding is, you know, I would agree with that, is like that they are completely, you know, even worse, they're neglecting our systems here. And so much taxpayer money. And the lowest income have been affected so much. I have a lot of documentation. You know, I've made a lot of attempts to reach out, you know, and point out to this litigation that's happened with the contractors. You know, point to the fact that, you know, it's just something's not right at that agency, and they're wasting so many millions. I'm not sure how many millions now. So, yeah, you know, I had a meeting with them, and I had meetings with their chief of police. I work at the Action Center in Jefferson County now, but I moved over here because, you know, I had a rough go at life. You know, I did a lot to myself or whatever, but you know, I had to leave Aurora, and I'm here near my job now. So, but we work with the homeless, and RTD is out here as well. And yeah, there's a lot I think that can be done. And what I was going to say is that with the money, what we're doing right now at the Action Center anyway is we work with the ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program. There's so much money that is available for people to get off the streets right now. Just so much, and you know, I think I was trying to reach out to RTD, and we're going to meet with them at this point too. We don't have many problems with them. I think there's so many solutions that, you know, like I said, you know, like congestion, traffic, you know, quality of life, you know, climate change, all that. But there's money that can be spent in a smart way to alleviate homelessness or whatever, like things like that. And yeah, it's just important for people to start listening because the leadership, because just an example of a complete dumpster fire that's been ongoing for almost going on 5 years or more. So.
All right, thank you,
Well, thank
Paulo.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Commissioner, can you like you mentioned some of this stuff when you talked about the county business for 2022, and we certainly are dedicating a lot of money to the programs that he mentions. Can you talk a little bit about what the county's role is with RTD? Because that's kind of a separate entity from us.
It is, but thank you. We do focus on that because we do realize that the importance of mass transit and getting people to and around our county and to and from work. I think it really is, and you identified certainly individuals who don't have a car and need public transportation. It is really important, and I totally agree with you. We all know that it's a difficult issue right now with trying to find bus drivers and some of the other things that RTD, the issues that they have. But I can tell you, we recognize as a county how important public transportation is, and are trying to continue to advocate to have more public transportation. We only have, for example, one RTD line, I think it's 66, that goes across from Littleton to past Parker Road. And I think it's improved in certain areas of Aurora, but it really needs to be better. So thank you, Paulo, for your call. I do want to say that the other thing that I didn't mention in using some of these American Rescue dollars, as well as using some of our CARES funding that we had previously, is to focus on issues of homelessness, and we've put a huge effort into working with our cities, Inglewood, Sheridan, and Littleton, and working with them. We've got a study that we got the results back. We've worked with Aurora, as well as in trying to make sure we're all trying to do the best for those individuals and to get them back on their feet, jobs if that's possible. So trying to look at all of the issues, whether mental health issues are a concern, trying to get them into programs and getting services. So that's been a priority for our more vulnerable populations. And thank you for the work that you are doing um, to help that population. But I can guarantee you, although RTD is a totally separate entity, we are well aware that our residents pay RTD taxes, and we want to make sure that they get the services that they deserve.
Excellent. Thank you. We do have several questions lined up here. Before we get to those, I want to ask one more polling question for those of you on the phone. The question is, how satisfied have you been with your interactions with the Arapahoe County government specifically? Press 1 if you've been very satisfied, 2 if you've been somewhat satisfied, 3 if you're neutral or it doesn't apply because it hasn't happened yet, 4 if you've been somewhat dissatisfied, and 5 if you've been very dissatisfied. Again, how satisfied have you been with your interactions with the Arapahoe County government? 1 is very, 2 is somewhat satisfied, 3 is neutral or not applicable, 4 is somewhat dissatisfied, and 5 is very dissatisfied. I will give you those results in just a second. I have a couple more health department specific questions. One, Commissioner, this is coming in from online. Do you know yet what Dr. John Douglas's plans are during the winding down of the Tri-County Health Department as we move from that into whatever we come up with next year? This questioner says he's benefited us with his wisdom, and I hope there is some way we may still benefit from it after the end of this year.
I don't know what his plans are. So I really can't comment on that. But, I think he will continue to provide leadership. I know he will continue to provide leadership for what's soon not to be Tri-County Health through the remainder of this year.
Right. Excellent. And another question from an online viewer is, how is the new Arapahoe County Health Board, when we finally have settled on it, how are they going to be accountable to us, the general population?
Well, that's a very good question. And one of the things that I really feel is important is to have at least one elected official on that board and to represent, the citizens. I think we've heard that loud and clear over the last 2 years that we need to make sure that we have elected officials that are on that board. According to state statute, I just want to be just really clear, we can't have any more. You can't have one entity that could be physicians, that could be elected officials that are a majority of the board. So, except in counties where they have 100,000 population or less. So, our county is about 650,000 people, so that doesn't apply to us. So, while we can't have elected officials that are the majority of the board, I think it's important to have personally, I can't speak for the whole board, this is just my personal opinion, that we need to have at least one elected official on that board. Some of it will depend on, do we have 5 members or 7 members of the board? And making sure that we have individuals from a cross section of maybe it's geographic or a variety of things. I think it is also at the same point important to have medical professionals on this board. And but again, you can't have one particular, whether they're physicians or they're business community leaders or elected officials that are the majority of the board. It's one of the things that I didn't realize until we've gone through some of the state statutes. The one thing I did want to add to Sonia's question a little bit ago, I forgot to add that what we are planning to do is begin implementation in the third quarter of this year. So when we're starting to reach out, it's going to be this first quarter and into the second quarter so that we can make those decisions and beginning the implementation process by the third quarter, sometime in the third quarter. So if that helps a little bit on timing, kind of stay tuned over the next 5 months, maybe a little bit longer, but that's sort of the decision-making process time.
All right. So we have one more phone question. This is about the redistricting that you mentioned. I think we need some clarification on that. This is Sharon. Sharon, go ahead. You are live.
Hi, Nancy. This is Sharon, and I've been in email contact with you about the health board, so I appreciate that information. But my question happens to be, with the increase in Colorado's population based on the 2020 census, are the state house districts and the state senate districts, which are assigned to Arapahoe County, going to increase or decrease for each one of those?
Yeah, well, the boundaries are definitely have definitely changed. So I would recommend, for example, I had one representative that represented where I live in a House district, but I no longer am in that House district. So she will represent a different area. So I think probably just if you look on our I believe, Luke, I believe it's their Arapahoe votes. You can
Right.
go in there, and we do have the new by precinct. If your precinct maybe has changed, or your House or Senate district has changed, I'm thinking that's all updated by now, and if not, will be shortly, so that you can see which district you now fall into. Many people are going to be in the same district that they have been and in the same precinct that they have been, but some have changed. So, and yes, it has to be, they're looking at somewhat of a distribution, not so much in the precinct area, but by House and Senate district to try and keep those pretty balanced. And that'll be the same thing that we will look at in commissioner districts. I know this is my 12th year as a commissioner, and my district has changed quite a bit since this last race that I ran 3 years ago was different than the very first time I ran. So, and mostly because I live on the western side of the county, and the eastern side of the county is where most of the growth is. So you're going to see some of the commissioner districts, for example, moving further to the east. If we look at the growth that happened out on E470, for example, out off of I-70, we have tremendous growth in unincorporated Arapahoe County and in Aurora on the out east. So I would just say check with the clerk and recorder's office. You can find a lot of information online already, and with updated precincts and Senate and House districts. And, congressional districts, I think, will change a little bit for us too, mostly on the northern side of the metro area. I think is where you'll see a lot of in the congressional. Of course, Senate is not involved, but the congressional district changes. That shouldn't affect us too much, but the others, that would be my recommendation, is look there. And again, if you have trouble finding what you need, let us know, and we'll try to see if we can help you out.
Absolutely. And yeah, when it's time to mail ballots out and things like that, that'll tell you also a lot about whether anything's changed for you. So, and if you do have questions, as Commissioner said, arapahoevotes.com is a great way to look. And you could also send us an email, communications services at arapahoegov.com. We can point you to the right people. Before I get to the last question, go ahead.
Before you go on, one thing I was just going to say is when we start getting into the fall, you'll start hearing from candidates, and then you will definitely know which district you are in, because all those folks will want your vote. And
Yep.
so you will start if you don't know who exactly, if there's been a change on who might represent you, you will learn about that really quickly if you don't already. But you certainly will start getting information this summer and well into the fall before before the election it actually takes place.
That's a great point. All right, let me give you the final poll question results. How satisfied have you been with your interactions with the Arapahoe County government? 33% have been very satisfied, 29% have been somewhat satisfied, 24% are neutral or it's not applicable, 5% have been somewhat dissatisfied, and 9% have been very dissatisfied. As always, we encourage you to email us at communicationservices@arapahoegov.com, particularly if you fall on the more negative side of it. We'd love to figure out how we can make our services better for you. And so to conclude tonight, Commissioner, I wanted to note that you said early on that this is your final term, your final year of your final term as commissioner. What are you most proud of over your 12 years here?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I think for me, mostly the great people, and I know, when we talk about, we want to hear. It's always hard to hear when you haven't lived up to what people expect from you, but it's important, as Luke said, for us to know those things. And if there are ways that we can improve, we certainly want to try to do that. I know that's important for me and what I've tried to do. There are many things we talked about. I think some of the light rail. Uh, I think I think now going through this health department will certainly be one thing. Highline Canal, preservation of the Highline Canal is one thing that I'm be very, very proud of. And I think just hopefully leaving the county better than it was, or maybe not better. That's not maybe not the right way to say, but trying to help us through a lot of the transitions that we've faced and a lot of the issues, certainly ups and downs in the economy, the pandemic, which was extremely stressful for all of us, no matter what your belief is and where you were. It was a high stress time for us, for families, for our kids in schools, and changing so many different things. So I think I just have appreciated all the great people that I've gotten to know and had a chance to work with and learn from. I think that's really it, and hopefully, having been on the executive budget committee at the county for 9 out of my 11 years, leaving the county in good fiscal condition and good fiscal shape. And I think that's really important. We haven't overspent. We spend the money that we have in the most effective way that we can, the most responsible way that we can, by listening to our residents. And that's been really, really important to me over the years. And I'm with the guidance of a great department directors all across our county and other elected officials that I've had the privilege of working with. That'll continue. So thank you, Luke.
Thank you. And
Yeah, I'm not yet. I've still got 11 months, so
yeah,
I'm
right.
still here.
Yeah, and your constituents will have 3 more chances to meet you in this format, and probably many others in person and virtually. One of my colleagues reminded me that the first county-wide town hall that I mentioned earlier will be happening the last week of March, and that will likely deal mostly or all with the health department creation. So with that, I want to thank everybody who called in and typed in questions tonight, and thanks to Commissioner Sharpe. And a recording of this will be available within 24 hours on our website.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us tonight. And I look forward to seeing everybody in person, hopefully maskless very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.